Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
Cut the Clutter is going with the flavor of the season, which is India, Pakistan, Kashmir, and today's discussion or analysis is inspired or provoked by 4 different things that have happened in different places but connected, and I shall tell you how later. But these four things are: 1, a tweet by Rajnath Singh that we spoke about in the previous edition of Cut the Clutter from Pokhran, very created a little ambiguity about India's commitment not to use nuclear weapons against any adversary first. Second was another set of tweets. Now this is not one tweet, but this is 5 tweets. So what you might call a Twitter storm or a tweet storm, or maybe another meltdown by Imran Khan. You remember episode 239 of Cut the Clutter was about his speech in the assembly of Muzaffarabad in the part of Kashmir controlled by Pakistan, and that speech we had called a meltdown. So if that was a meltdown, these tweets are a double meltdown, and we'll again come to that. The next thing was the UN Security Council meeting, closed-door UN Security Council meeting in New York, and what happened there. And the fourth element to this is a speech that once again Rajnath Singh, who had earlier written that tweet from Pokhran, he made a speech today where he said that if there will be talks with Pakistan now on Kashmir, they will only be about the part of Kashmir that Pakistan occupies or Pakistan occupied Kashmir, effectively saying that or any negotiations on the part of Kashmir that is with India are now over. So India has no give on this side of the line of control. I will come later to what this means and how these 4 things add up. These 4 different happenings make us look at the picture along 3 different axes. What are these axes? And what are these diverse messages telling us? The first thing they are telling us is that the initiative in the subcontinent, at least tactically, has now shifted from Pakistan to India. In the past, it was always Pakistan doing something in Kashmir or something happening in Kashmir like Pulwama, and India responding and reacting. That has now completely changed. Linked to that is this whole idea of who will attack whom and when. Now, India is not saying that you provoked us, we might attack you. India is not going around the world complaining, control Pakistan, or we will use our conventional forces against Pakistan. It's now the other way around. The Pakistanis are having to do it. To that extent, this situation has fundamentally changed, but I'm still saying this is not a strategic shift, this is a tactical shift. I will tell you the one that I call strategic shift. The second, if you see this big meltdown by Imran Khan on Twitter today. So he says many things. He says that Muslims in India are threatened, other minorities are threatened. Once again, that this Indian government, India has been taken over by Nazis. India has been grabbed by the Nazis just as Hitler had done with Germany. I think people will be a little bored with this talk now because they know that not everybody voted for Narendra Modi in India. In fact, more than 50% people did not vote for him. But he did become Prime Minister in a perfectly legitimate, clear, open, transparent constitutional process. All right, you can say that fascists can also take over a country through elections, but that's not a point that Imran needs to make right now. And really, if Imran worries about India's minorities, and in fact he says this is not the India of the conception of Nehru and Gandhi. I mean, the last favor that Nehru needs right now from Imran Khan, from the Pakistanis, is to have Imran Khan supporting him when Nehru himself is under so much attack in India. So these are all ridiculous, and these show a degree of desperation. But the key thing there is, one of his 5 tweets says, look at the world, look at all the rest of the world. India's nukes are now controlled by this fascist force, as if India has no constitutional system, and they could be irresponsible in using that. And then what will happen? So there is a threat to the world, not just to Pakistan, there is a threat to the world from India's nukes. Now, how ridiculous can that get? Because, and how interesting can that get? Because this is a complete reversal of the playbook of nuclear deterrence in this subcontinent. Ever since the two countries went nuclear openly in 1998, the playbook has been the Pakistanis come and do something, India then threatens to retaliate, or as in Pulwama, retaliates, and Pakistanis then immediately start rattling their nuclear sword and try to get the whole world worried. In fact, usually they start pooping off missiles for tests. During Op Parakram, if you go back and check the newspapers or clippings or Google, you will find that Pakistan fired several missiles as tests. In fact, at one point they fired so many missiles that Indian spokesperson, that Nirupama Rao, later Foreign Secretary, she was asked to comment on Pakistan's frequent missile tests, and she said, she gave a 4-word answer: we are not impressed. But the fact is, it was always the Pakistanis who were laying out the nuclear threat and trying to get the world's attention. Now it's the opposite. India is not making a nuclear threat, but it's the Pakistanis who are saying there is a nuclear threat from India, whereas it was acknowledged so far that nuclear weapons for India were a deterrent. They are still a deterrent. It's the Pakistanis who always, since 1989, talked of using them proactively. They are not saying that now. They are going to the rest of the world saying, get India to control its nukes. So far, the whole world has been telling Pakistanis, control your nukes, because this whole loose nukes threat comes from Pakistan. So that equation has reversed. In conventional terms, you would say that is a strategic shift. But once again, I am saying that is not a strategic shift. Just because something is nuclear, it doesn't become strategic. This is not Washington. This is the subcontinent. The third shift that we are looking at is strategic, and that is a shift about the status of Kashmir. And that also I am drawing the lessons from these 4 developments that I had mentioned to you, and from those I am drawing this conclusion, and I will tell you how. Now, first of all, at the UN, UN met, discussed Kashmir, depending on how you want to calculate, either for the first time after 1965, which is 54 years later, or for the first time since 1971, although the context then was not Kashmir. So that is 48 years. So after 5 decades. So for Pakistan, it was an immediate matter of joy that the UN is finally, UN Security Council is discussing Kashmir. Now what happened there? China came out in Pakistan's support openly. Chinese also came out and made a statement. None of the other countries did. Importantly, of the P5, the 5 members who really decide things in the Security Council, the rest are guest artists. Of the 5 members, 4 in different ways, but 4 sided with India. Or I would say 3.5, because the British had an ambiguous position. The British wanted an open session, or at least an open statement, but we have no evidence, and I don't believe that it's true, that they would have wanted a statement as critical as, say, the Chinese would have wanted. But they were, from India's point of view, a disappointment. So barring 1.5, the other 3 steadfastly stood with India. I would say that if push had come to the shove, 4 would have stood with India if there was a resolution condemning India, or if there is a resolution asking India to do something. Now, compare that to what used to happen in the past. Until the last time the Security Council discussed Kashmir, it used to be 4:1 in Pakistan's favor. So America, France, Britain, China, they would vote with Pakistan, and India was only saved by Russia's veto. Today, India does not need that veto. Today, that equation has reversed. Today, 4 are on the other side, and China has become to Pakistan what Russia used to be to India. So that is a big strategic shift. And I'm not one of those who's afraid of Kashmir becoming internationalized. So what? Everything is internationalized these days. Let it be internationalized. But what these events have shown us, is a new fact, is the new reality of the world, that in this world, the leverage that Pakistan has, it has a lot of sympathy, say, in the Western media because it's the underdog. There is natural sympathy for quote-unquote oppressed peoples, etc., etc. But beyond that, at the state level, the only Western country which has so far come out openly with a position that Pakistanis can really celebrate is Sweden. Maybe Bosnia, I mean, if you call that a country of consequence, but really Sweden. It's the Swedish foreign minister who put out a tweet which the Pakistani foreign minister could have written. Now, this is an interesting question. Sweden ko gussa kyun aata hai? But that one of my colleagues, one of our reporters is working on that story, and maybe we'll find you some answers in the next couple of days. But the sum total of all this is, and then read this with Rajnath's statement today, that in future, if there are talks on Kashmir with Pakistan, they will be about Pak-occupied Kashmir. That is a strategic change, because what is India saying? India is saying so far talks used to be, what concessions can India make on its side of Kashmir? Make borders open, give people easy access, open trade, some things which Pakistanis could go home and claim, something for them to write home about, to say that we got this for Kashmiris. That chapter is now closed. So India is saying, you want to negotiate? Let's negotiate with what you have. You want favors from us, and this is, I'm saying it, government of India is not saying it. You want any favors for us? Maybe we'll give up our claims on what you have across the line of control. So you keep what you have, we keep what we have, declare this a formal border and be done with it. How long are we going to be held to ransom by this? Quite frankly, I know that nobody in the government will put this forward, but if it was put forward and if it went forward, this is something that will find support in almost all global capitals. The idea of going back to the UN resolutions now is an impossibility, because there, as we said earlier, Pakistan had to first vacate the entire region of its military, and today not just Pakistan, even the Chinese will have to vacate nearly 7,000 square kilometers of territory of original Kashmir, because Pakistan gifted it to them. So China is now party there. That is not going to happen. Nobody would want it. So I think a new normal has now been set in India-Pakistan relations over Kashmir. And unless there is a resolution soon, I can tell you from my own reading and understanding how this story is going to unfold. This may now, I will be surprised if I am proven wrong on this. I think you will see on the Indian side a quicker and faster modernization and acquisition process for its conventional defense forces. So India will now widen its conventional gap more and more and more, because, as we said earlier, of the three things that have happened now, one is that India has shed its fear of the Pakistan nukes, and India has now given up its old phobia that Pakistanis are irrational. They will use nuclear weapons earlier than we think, because right now, just as there is a balance of deterrence, a balance of terror, there is also a balance of nuclear irrationality. कि आप अगर ऐसे सोचते हैं तो हम भी ऐसे ही सोच सकते हैं. I think these are the big changes, and this is a strategic shift. Where this leads, I don't know. Two sides play a match. So I'm not saying that one side which has made the moves now, which is India, has won the match. The other side will make its moves also. The move they've made at the UN has not worked. This whole idea now of trying to attack India for its nukes, India's internal politics, RSS, Hitler, etc., is not going to work.